It is July 17th. A lot happened in the news this week politically, so I figured I'd do a long form video and talk about it. I'm still new to this, but we're gonna try. All right, so this weekend, I just happened to be up at like 1 a.m. on Saturday. I shouldn't say just happened to be. I'm a night owl, so I'm gonna be up late. And a friend of mine, my friend Shay Jordan Smith, was like, y'all, Lindsey Graham dead. And Shay is a jokester and he's very witty. And so I never know if he means things literally or as a joke. And I was like, stop playing on my phone. But no, he was serious. I don't want to say dead serious, but he was serious. So I go over to Twitter and see Lindsey Graham is deceased. And I quickly post a video about it online, sharing the screenshot from his page. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett repost comments, was like, we just got the word. Yeah, this actually is true. So we've all been waiting for Mitch McConnell. And I shouldn't say waiting. That sounds like we're like, cheering on a death. I wouldn't say I'm cheering on a death, but the reports we saw for an 80-year-old getting hauled out of his house for cardiac arrest, we were waiting for a Mitch McConnell update. And so we got a Lindsey Graham update instead. This essentially has the Republicans down by 2 votes in the Senate, which is a big deal for them because with these confirmation hearings this week for the DNI and also the AG, Todd Blanche, they don't have room for Todd Blanche to piss off one Republican. They got some rogue Republicans as well because they pissed them off. So John Cornyn, who's the current senior senator out of Texas, who they primaried and beat. Bill Cassidy, the senator out of Louisiana, who they primaried and beat. Tom Tillis, who's retiring, who just, at this point, just likes to go rogue. And so we've seen, if you watch some clips, John Cornyn went a little bit rogue. I think John Cornyn goes a little bit rogue, but I still think he votes for these people. And you see Tom Tillis challenge some of the things they were saying as well. I saw a really good clip of Tom Tillis challenging the Doge savings and all that. So they've got some interesting things at play there. You also add to that the Susan Collins of it all. Susan Collins her election right now in May is a referendum on her, playing both sides and these crazy votes like voting for Kavanaugh, which of course leads to the Dobbs decision, which she kept saying that I talked to him, he supports abortion, he understands the precedent, all these different things. So Susan Collins cannot afford a vote like that going into November. That's too close. Like, she can kind of push away from the Kavanaugh decision that was some years ago, but if she does it in the next few months. So even though we don't know what's going on with Mitch at this juncture, we know he can't vote. We know he ain't at that Senate, and of course Lindsey Graham is gone. I started seeing some people talking about the governor of Kentucky, Andy Beshear, and people are demanding that Andy do something. And I'm like, baby, what constitution y'all got? Because I went to law school, but I don't think that's how that works. I don't think there's anything that Andy really can do. Maybe he can go to court and force a showing or something like that. I don't know, but I don't think there really is a clear path for him to replace, to force Mitch McConnell to get off the pot. You know what I'm saying? I don't really think he has a path there. Mitch McConnell and them are sitting on this seat because they understand. They also are fearful that Andy Beshear can replace him. Now, I know they have passed these laws in Kentucky to take the power away from the governor. The governor typically puts in an interim replacement when a senator is incapacitated or dies. And they passed these laws, but Andy, right before Mitch McConnell's, the picture comes out, Andy Beshear goes on Al Sharpton's show and says, listen, there's a constitutional question. The Kentucky Constitution, I believe, gives me authority to do this. And you cannot amend the Kentucky Constitution with a law. So we're going to, have some conversations here. But I do think, I think I have the authority. And the fact that they are not pushing Mitch McConnell to resign or what have you, they think that as well. So that's kind of where we are. So for them, it is better for them to be in limbo because they'd rather just be down one than to have a Democrat there. That's a whole different conversation to have Mitch McConnell replaced by a Democrat. Speaking of replacements, we did get a replacement this week. Darlene Graham, I forget her married name, not important for this. Lindsey Graham's sister replaced him in the Senate this week. And people definitely feel a way about that. And it is nepotism, it's cronyism. I would even say it's a dash of sexism as well, because to me, what they call like the widow replacement, this is a long history of replacing people with their widows and stuff like that happened with Mel Carnahan in 2000, maybe 2000 in Missouri. It's not super uncommon on both sides, Democrats and Republicans. But I think you pick the unqualified sister / he helped to raise her, daughter of Lindsey Graham, because you think you can control her and that she'll just do the votes that you all want because she's not that deeply invested in this, right? And she's also mourning the loss of her brother suddenly. Okay, so that's why you pick her. What I do not like, and I have a whole video about this, I do not like Democrats calling her a DEI hire. We cannot continue to let Republicans change the meanings of words and just agree with that and start using it in that same way. DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm saying this as a lawyer who's also a DEI practitioner. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is merit-based hiring. This works to ensure that everyone has an equal opportunity to succeed in the workplace and the hiring process. It is not picking someone because, oh yeah, that's her sister, we're gonna hire her sister. Nepotism. And so it's so important that I get people think it's a helpful rhetorical device to call it their hypocrisy, but it's not a helpful rhetorical device if you're using their definition. You have to spin the definition on its head, and just adopting DEI hire in the same way that they do in an unironic way is not doing that. So we have to stop doing that, okay? It's been like my big pet peeve as a person who has been watching the field that I love, I think is so important, be completely attacked by the Republican Party, and then watching Democrats just kind of see that moment and start calling DEI like non-merit based. It's like, bruh, no, DEI foundationally is merit-based hiring. It removes barriers. It stops the affinity bias where you can't hire people that went to just your college or your law school, or you can't. We remove things that block the good old boys club. So when I see that really bothers me, and I've given a warning, and I'm gonna start calling people out. There was this really big platform on Threads, white lady, and she said it to Nikki Haley when Nikki Haley was defending Darlene. I don't care what Nikki says. Nikki Haley made some calls because she wanted that seat. I don't care what she said, she did. And they were serious about putting somebody that could be powerful in that moment. If they were serious, they would have picked Nikki Haley. But we'll see. Nikki may throw her hat in the ring to be to run for the seat. Now that it's open, they're gonna have that truncated primary. Anywho. I'm gonna start responding and embarrassing people who think that they're allies. No, you're not an ally if you're out here adopting DEI hire in the same way that the Republicans use it. Child, okay, I have notes. That man's speech yesterday, didn't watch. I actually thought I had something on my calendar. Looked at my calendar, I didn't have anything on my calendar, but I decided to watch some new Amazon show with what's her face? It's a little cop buddy show, so I was watching that. Can't tell you what he said. I know he's up there lying. The logic is not logicking. Like, so just there was only interference in the election that you won. Oh, okay. If I were to believe this, there wasn't interference in 2024. And the time that you were in control, you only lost when you were in the White House. I'm not even gonna say make it make sense because it don't make a lick of sense. I'm not even doing it. And I'm laughing to keep from just being really, really mad because I know that this is definitely a threat to what happens in November. And at least in Texas right now, I do not feel this like overwhelming excitement or this understanding of duty beyond just like my super tapped in political nerd friends. And there is going to have to be a huge, like, not just like, oh, they won by 2 votes or they won by 2,000 votes. It's going to have to be a stomping at the local level, at the state level, at the federal level for so many of these seats for it not to be in question. You know, it even if it is a stomping, they're going to question it. But I just don't feel that energy yet. And maybe there's time to still build that energy because I do think it has to be built. There's a piece to that, but I don't feel that yet. And I don't know if people who are not as tapped in as I am are really picking up. Or if you're watching this, you also probably are super tapped in as well. I don't know if people are picking up on this just yet. And so that is my concern going into November. We also have some upcoming primaries, Missouri, and I always mention Missouri because I'm originally from Missouri. You can see my shirt says Kansas City. I am I claim Texas. I've been in Texas. I grew up in Texas. I've been here my whole life. I moved here when I was 5 years old. I'm from Texas, but my family in Missouri is always like, okay, girl, I see you doing those recommendations for Texas. We need that as well. So the Missouri primary is coming up. There are some big races in that primary. I think probably the biggest one people will be watching for the Missouri primary will be Cori Bush and Wesley over in St. Louis for that congressional seat. For people that are from places like me in Houston, I think sometimes we forget in Houston, there are like 7-8 congressional seats that come through Harris County, the Houston metro area. So it's not uncommon for you to be in one seat and your friend to be in another. So my parents live about 45 minutes from me. My parents and my sister, they're in a different congressional seat than me. In cities like Kansas City and St. Louis, for the most part, there's like 2, maybe 3 congressional seats that are in one area, which I think just heightens it, right? So like most of my friends who live in St. Louis Metro are in this district, and it's been really interesting to watch this. It's one of those races where I feel like outside conversations aren't helpful. I feel like that's one of those ones I'm like, y'all got that in St. Louis. I don't know what, y'all got it. So of course you have this rematch. Cori Bush was the incumbent. She was challenged by Wesley Bell? She was challenged by Wesley Bell. Wesley beats her. People often pointed to the AIPAC funding that came in to support Wesley. He got to use a lot of funding with that. They point to that funding. And so he ultimately beats her. And Cori said, I'm running again. So Cori's running again. So we had this rematch. And so now Wesley is he's the incumbent. So it's an interesting race just from those dynamics, and then the outside money, all these different things. And what I continue to see people say, people who don't live in St. Louis, is like, well, we need her to fight for Palestine, fight for Gaza. And I get that. I'm not saying I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I think what's interesting to me when I talk to people from St. Louis, the issues they're looking for their member of Congress are different. And so I often wonder, is it fair of us from the outside to be pressuring people, to be trying to influence a race from both sides, from AIPAC and not AIPAC people? Is it fair of us to be trying to influence a race like this when the issue is a global issue? And people always go like, well, it impacts all these different things, and I get that, but there are some major issues happening in St. Louis. And I'm not saying that Cori Bush has not talked about those issues, but there was a tornado in St. Louis was that a year ago? And I've got friends who still are rebuilding from that. And so federal dollars and support from their federal lawmakers makes a huge difference for them. So I'm always interested when I see people and how we try to prioritize things for other people. That's been a really interesting thing when a race gets nationalized, when a race goes from just kind of being this local race to this national race. There are a couple of races that I am watching that are not national yet that I think could be interesting. The Mississippi Senate race, the Democratic nominee, young black guy, I have to look up his name, but he's polling well. The last time the sitting senator, Republican Cindy last time Cindy ran, that race got nationalized. That the guy she ran against was pretty well known outside of Mississippi as well. So sometimes I'm curious if the race being national, if it avoiding being nationalized, if that's a good thing. I often wonder about that. Certainly when it gets national attention, it gets more money. So I think now the South Carolina race is absolutely nationalized. The doctor who was running against Lindsey Graham, I don't think she got a lot of national attention. Nothing how it was when Jamie Harrison ran against Lindsey last time, but I thought I had the making to be that, right? So I think that race definitely is going to get nationalized and get a lot more attention. One race that is not going national that I actually think could really be for his benefit, unless he can kind of pick up some more money, is the Iowa Senate race. Now, when I saw this map of just fundraising, pretty much all the Democrats was stomping their Republican opponents in some of these key races from North Carolina to Ohio, Alaska, Texas, all these different places. The Democrat was up, except Iowa. The Republican in the Iowa race has more money. This is also an open seat because Joni Ernst is not running for re-election. They still got that 92-year-old. The 92-year-old is still, Chuck Grassley is still up there though. And his race has not gotten the same attention. And I'm curious for that one. He is this kind of outsider. He's coming from that same consulting class as Graham Plattner. I'm not saying that he's got some skeletons in his closet, but that's one I'm almost like, it may not be good to nationalize this because people will try to make a pattern out of, well, actually, I take that back. He's not from the same consultants as Graham Plattner, same consultants as Tallarico and Mallory McMorrow, just so we're clear. And in this consultant class, if there's anything that comes out of this primary season, I sure hope it's a referendum on these consultants. They are a problem. So we got that. We also have the Michigan primary, and Mallory McMorrow, I think, was probably really positioned, came in there with, I think, the strongest national name recognition. And so now she stepped down, and I think people thought that her stepping down was going to benefit the Dr. Abdul, I think it's El Said, was going to benefit him. It hasn't. It's benefited Haley Stevens, who, there was an interview somebody did, and I wish I could find it. This was some months ago. This guy interviewed all three of those candidates, Mallory, Haley, and Abdul, asked them the same questions. Mallory gave no answers. It was very much Aaron Burr, no answers. Haley gave answers that I was like, don't agree with that. And then Abdul gave great answers. So I kind of thought people kind of filter over to Abdul when Mallory stepped out, but I'm guessing they had some polling that told them, you need to step out because that's the only way that we're going to be able to beat Abdul. If we're here, we split the vote. And so with Mallory out, Haley just skyrocketed. I said, no, where'd she come from? And somebody, y'all, I didn't say it. I ain't gonna say who said it. Somebody posted a picture of her looking like Marla Hooch from League of Their Own. I cannot unsee it. Every time I see her, that's what I see now. Marla Hooch. Anywho, so Haley is now racking up the endorsements, and she has also started getting support from Black folks. Yeah, that's been interesting to me. And the CBC PAC has endorsed her. And that endorsement came out right before I hit record on this video. So I'm interested to see what happens. Now, Abdul, he's a doctor. He did, right after Joe Biden stepped down, he did endorse Kamala Harris. People have found the tweet. He said, we got to rally around Kamala Harris. Now, I haven't gotten too deep into that because I saw that tweet, and the tweet is dated the day after Joe Biden steps down and Kamala Harris becomes the nominee. Now, we know what happened after that. The uncommitted movement in Michigan was very active, and it pissed off a lot of Black folks. It really did. And so I'm seeing some people that are saying this is the chickens come home to roost for the uncommitted movement and him being involved with that. I ain't saying I agree with it. I'm just saying what the people said, okay? That this is people being like, okay, well, you didn't support the Black woman, so we're not gonna support you. And do I think, listen, nobody wins from the family feuds. That's what I know. Nobody wins from the family feuds. And so I think this is an interesting piece. One of the big things against Haley Stevens is probably one of the strongest supporters of Israel that we have as a current candidate. And when I would hear her say that, I said, no, that may not work today, Haley. And clearly it has not mattered. So I'm just telling what the people saying. I have no opinion on it because I can't vote in Michigan. But I'm looking at Elisa Slotkin. I can't stand her. Elisa Slotkin is one of my least favorite senators. Can't stand her. She got on my last nerves up here using the word woke, just how I say it. People use DEI hire. She was doing that. I sent her team an email. I sure did. And the response was, well, you don't live in Michigan. I don't care. You up talking about national issues? Girl, quit saying that. You represent places like Detroit talking about woke like this. Are you crazy? And I see she ain't used woke that way again. But the idea that y'all would have a Lisa Slotkin and then Haley Stevens, Michigan. I mean, I guess I got two Democrats. I guess me sitting over here with two. I could potentially have two of the craziest Republicans in the Senate representing me. So I guess it could be worse. I'm living in the worst. But my God, that is an interesting race to watch. So Michigan folks, if you're on my sway is sway.co/Black Girl See Brunch. I do send updates over there about elections that are coming up and things like that. So please be sure to keep up with that. I need to start sending out text messages to my Missouri friends. Y'all up, it's your time to go vote. There's a lot of important things on those ballots. I went and pulled up, because I know she was going to ask me. I went and pulled up my aunt's, because I got her address. I went and pulled up her sample ballot from Missouri. It's a lot on there in Kansas City. I said, oh, okay, and I have a friend, and he's very active in Kansas City politics. I said, hey, where's your list of things I gotta send to my family? So that's definitely coming. I had me a little notepad with all the things I want to talk about on here. Next thing as well. I always think this is gonna be like an hour-long discussion of these things, but actually it's not. So maybe I need to do these more often over on YouTube and break down just kind of some quick things that are happening. Oh, other thing, that man's speech. Now, let me tell you something. I saw the story today or yesterday, that the FBI or the feds are investigating his teleprompter man, because the teleprompter man probably was betting on his speeches. I'm assuming the length of the speeches or what have you. I said, the corruption around this man knows no bounds. The teleprompter man is getting in on it. That is crazy to me. So we'll see what goes on with that. But it's just, you can't keep up. There's just the sons, the daughters, and you just can't keep up with all the allegations and all the money exchange and all that. So just a lot going on. Let me end with this kind of longer conversation about the incident I shouldn't say incident, the ICE fatality where ICE murdered somebody in my hometown of Houston. Let's talk about some of the updates with that. So our district attorney is a guy named Sean Tier. I am so proud that I voted for him against the incumbent Kim Ogg, because we knew Kim Ogg was a problem, and we was like, we gotta get her up out of here, and we rallied the troops, and she got stomped in that primary, and now we have Sean as a DA, and I'm grateful Houston voters that we had foresight, because we knew that Kim was gonna put us in some BS. Because I'm gonna tell y'all something right now. If y'all been watching RDA on CBS News and CNN and all these different things and being like, oh, he's great, please know if Kim Ogg was in that seat, we'd be getting none of this. So he's really kind of pushed people along and was like, no, I'm going to investigate this, as has Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia, who represents the East End. And just the flag here, I keep telling people this, the East End, where this happened, has been redistricted. It is going to be in the new 9th. The new 9th is created to be a Republican district. This area where this happened could potentially be represented by a Trump-endorsed carpetbagger MAGA woman who don't live in that district. So it's very important that we show up, because actually that area in 2018 went for Beto. So it's not a lost cause, but we gotta show up and support the candidate there. Her name is Leticia Gutierrez. I've already interviewed her. The video's up on all platforms except TikTok. I need to splice it for that. But if you got $5, she could definitely use $5. If you got time to volunteer, she could use that. If you're in the district, she needs your support, and you dragging 5 people to the polls, so they know that it's not a lost cause. But if you want to see the same kind of advocacy that you got from Sylvia Garcia, it is so important that we get out here and support Leticia Gutierrez. Now, anyway, so we have that. So first and foremost, we have our mayor has been real like, ooh, he gets on my nerves. I did not vote for that man. Our mayor, John Whitmire, is a Democrat, but we call that he's a Democrat name only. He's a dino. And so he is very close with the Republicans like Greg Abbott and all these different people. And we didn't call him a Republican fundraisers. How you out here raising money to go up against a Democrat? Are you crazy? He had this op-ed in the New York Times that he was just so proud of. Like, it was like an op-ed about standing for nothing. Like, I'm trying to avoid, I keep a low profile so I don't end up in Trump's fray. And this just goes to show you what keeping a low profile doesn't mean. It's for naught. You are a white man representing the 4th largest city in this country. The power and privilege that you have as a white man to be able to speak up for marginalized communities. And what did you do? You sat in that seat of power and you were silent. You were silent until ICE came through your city and murdered somebody and forced you to say something. Our members of our city council have been trying to challenge him, Edward Pollard, Alejandro Salinas. They've been trying to push him along. They try to put forward some additional they put forward options for city council to vote on to ensure that we weren't cooperating with ICE in ways that were unnecessary and not really in keeping with previous procedures and all that. He was like, oh yeah, I'll vote for it, because he'll flip-flop. He'll go where the wind goes. So he flip-flopped on that after Abbott came through and threatened that we would lose funding. It's not worth it. It's not worth, because he don't stand for nothing. So when this shooting first happens, when the incident happens, and we know that the Lorenzo Salgado Arujo has been murdered, our mayor, John Whitmire, is like, oh no, we can't investigate that. We don't have authority. We don't have jurisdiction. And people keep running with that. And that really pisses me off because it was intellectually dishonest. And I see him kind of walking that ish back. There is something, and he's a lawyer just how I'm a lawyer. We passed the same state bar in this state of Texas, okay? There is something called concurrent jurisdiction. And there are times where the feds and the state will have jurisdiction at the same time. And he was trying to act as though that he just, that's not how that works. Just how Greg Abbott be down there at that border, knowing that the border is for federal, and he down there thinking he can do stuff, like it's the same thing. But actually even stronger argument for the city to get involved. So he kept saying he wasn't going to do nothing. Baby, let me say something. They shut up down at that city hall and cut up. And I mean that in the most positive way possible. They read him for filth to his face with their 3-minute segments. And then if you watch the live showing of the people, like you watch like the hearing or the city council meeting, and you watched it and you were listening to people talk and talk directly to him and challenge him on him flip-flopping and not standing for ish, you can hear the protesters out in the hallway. You can hear them, which was so powerful. So yeah, after all that, he's talking about, okay, I'm gonna ask the Texas Rangers to investigate this. Now I sit up here and watch him on CNN talking about it's ISIS horrible. We have to do more. Y'all, I'm telling y'all that man is full of it. That is not what he stands for. He's taking this opportunity to stand for something because he's up for re-election soon, and we on his ass. And many of the people that are going to run against him have stood 10 toes down on this, and he knows that. And so he cannot, this is a majority Latino city. If you didn't stand with this community in this moment, baby, they're not going to stand with you when it's time to go vote. So I'm so sick of him. Then Greg Abbott. Let me tell you something. I don't know how Gina Hinojosa, who's Democratic nominee to run against Greg Abbott, I don't know how she messages this better. I'm not a comms person. But Greg Abbott is feeling the pressure. And we know this because Greg is doing this thing where he is flip-flopping on everything. So many issues that he was so hardcore on, he then flip-flopped on. He was silent about the ICE murder in Houston. Silent. Until he came out and said, oh yeah, I'm now going to allow the Texas Rangers to investigate this. And critiqued ICE. And all that is he up for re-election in November. That's all that is. And so similarly, we've watched him completely flip-flop on data centers. And I said, after being go data centers, rolling out the red carpet for these people, messing up our water and electricity, all these different things. We got a very fragile grid, and you rolling out the red carpet. Texas is gonna be the leader in artificial intelligence, and now the rural voters are pissed. And now you out here holding press conferences in rural areas saying, yeah, we're gonna block data centers from rural areas. He said, to damn with y'all in these urban areas. You're just not gonna be in the rural areas where my voters are. So Abbott, also a flip-flopper. But I want people to know, particularly the Latino organizers, this just goes to show how pressure works. Because people believe that you can't pressure Abbott to do anything. And typically you can't. But on this just shows that pressure on this issue, particularly as he goes into an election season, works. And he is seeing his own weaknesses. He's seeing how these movements through social media are gaining speed. He's seeing how this was the very early moments of this were framed really well for media. And it can be very difficult. It shouldn't be like this, but this is the case. They worked really hard to humanize Lorenzo Salgado Araujo. We see his sons up there who are these college-educated kids, and it shouldn't be like this, but y'all know that this is how this works. He had nothing to lean on to challenge them, to challenge this story about this man not deserving this. And so that's been an interesting thing to watch. So I would say, if you ever think protest and challenge in these electives does not work, it does. Because Greg Abbott is not up there saying what he said if it was not for these protests and these folks in Houston, across the state, saying, this ain't it. So now we see ICE also coming back and being like, okay, we're going to stop doing car stops. You think? Y'all not trying to do that. And how you, in Houston especially, if you try to pull me over and you ain't got nobody's HPD on the side of your car, I'm rolling. I'm rolling to the next police station. I'm not stopping. Are y'all crazy? Like that, like that's actually a scam in Houston where people try to get you to pull over and tell you that your tire is like loose or whatever, and then they'll scam you for some money. So like it's a very well known scam in Houston. They tell you do not pull over if it's not a marked car. No. That's number one. They also are trying to claim that the man had drugs in his car. I say, how convenient. But anyway, y'all not drug enforcement. Y'all there looking for people who are undocumented, or looking for a certain person that wasn't even Lorenzo. So I said, pish posh. I missing with these lies. Okay. So, and then our DA, because he's on it, was like, that's not consistent with our investigation. And then I saw a headline that was like, was it drugs or was it salt? If that turns out to be salt, which given who is the head of this FBI in this country, it is believable. So we also have John Cornyn calling on ICE to wear body cams and all that. I gotta go look. I think Joe Biden actually required them to do that when he was in office. And we see that hasn't continued. But definitely a story I'm following. Again, no one should have to die for us to come to a meeting of the minds that ICE is out of control and they're not operating with just basic law enforcement skills or training. They are out of control in our cities, and I think and then we had Whitmire talking about they they're out of control. We need a moratorium on ICE. I mean, he was really laying it on thick on CNN. I said, I know that who I think it is. So y'all know me. I got a list and I'm checking it twice on all the different things that he done flip-flopped on, because when it's time for him to run for re-election, I'm gonna be on it. Those are all my things for this week. What a crazy week. Hopefully this weekend is quiet. I don't need no senators. Nothing going on with these senators this weekend. We need it to be chill and calm this weekend. So, those. You know what? I'll do a separate video. I was gonna talk about Fawn Weaver with Uncle Nearest, but that might be a separate video, a separate conversation at this point. So, there you have it. Those are my thoughts. Erica of Black Grocery Brunch. My thoughts for the week. Ending on July 17th, because to me the week ends on the Friday. The weekend is its own little thing. But y'all have a good one.